Hey, it's Sunday, February 22nd, 2026. So, yesterday I went into a bit of the specifics on two gun control bills that were introduced in the Minnesota legislature. And today we're going to take a look at the concrete steps that I have taken to form and voice my opinion on the matter. First was formation. And to me, what that means is defining what I think about something and trying to nail down the experiences or knowledge that contribute to that belief. It's a process that is different for everybody, but it is a crucial process no matter how you go about it. For me, it involves time, conscious thought, writing things out, and getting some sleep on it. Next is identifying the path for action. In this case, the voting on these bills, I believe, is happening on Tuesday, February 24th, and votes are expected in both the state Senate and House. The composition of the state Senate and House is very even right now across party lines, and so nothing is really guaranteed to pass in this legislative environment. But knowing that, I went to the Minnesota Government Who Represents Me page, which I'll list in the description, to get contact info for my representatives. In my case, my House representative had his email and the email of a primary legislative assistant listed, so I wrote an email from my personal email address to contact those two individuals. For my state senator, there was no email listed, but rather a web form for contact. That ended up having a slightly more restrictive character limit, so I ultimately had to do a bit more editing on that version of my messaging. And then finally, after getting some sleep and drinking some coffee early this morning, I banged out a letter with which I aimed to do a few things. First, establish context for who I am and why I'm writing. Second, be very specific about what the issues that I have are with these bills. And then third, propose constructive alternatives to accomplish the same ultimate goal, a reduction in gun violence and gun harm with less divisive steps. So with those goals in mind, I'm going to go ahead and read just the longer text that I sent to my state House representative regarding this bill. Hello. I'm writing to you to urge reconsideration on bills HF 3402, large capacity magazine bans, and HF 3433, assault weapon bans. In light of the federal occupation of Minnesota this year, and specifically the profound sense of federal government betrayal from Operation Metro Surge, these bills warrant revision and potentially total reconsideration. I've worked in big tech with medical records and financial systems for the past 15 years, and I have a family history of military service and federal government defense contracting. I believe that the extreme proliferation of firearms in the civilian population, while something I am generally uncomfortable with, has played a silent yet significant role in deterring a more dangerous situation on the ground here in Minnesota so far in 2026. I purchased a firearm for the first time in my life this month. I did so despite the fact that it was never a priority prior to 2026, and I never plan or desire to ever shoot a firearm towards a living being. I did so because I believe that there is enough available data about firearm purchases that a company such as Palantir could, with money and connections, feasibly build out profiles for every citizen in the United States. The software applications that direct the actions of the DHS agents in our communities likely take into account aggregated economic, demographic, and propensity that households are armed when targeting their paramilitary style actions. It was amazing to me how easy it was to purchase what I consider to be an extremely dangerous weapon in the form of a pump-action shotgun. It took about 10 minutes for a background check, and I didn't require any sort of permit to purchase it. The legislation that is proposed here does nothing to make acquiring that or even more dangerous semi-automatic shotguns any more difficult. Both bills contain exemptions for government agents, and the assault weapon ban text exempts all government employees. I feel less safe from those populations having guns than the general public, and I advocate for legislation that mandates demilitarization of all government forces in the state of Minnesota, commensurate with any demilitarization of the civilian populace. The assault weapon ban bills include additional administrative costs, including significant administrative burden and open-ended licensing fees at a time when the state budget is already under intense, previously unexpected pressure. The provision for mandatory home inspections, while not strictly unconstitutional, will certainly be seen as such for any privacy advocates. As someone with both a mother and a sister who are Catholic high school teachers in the Twin Cities metro, I do understand how profoundly the shooting last year at Annunciation shook our community. I completely understand how this legislation aims to mitigate the amount of harm that can be caused should a similar tragic event continue to occur. I believe the most important thing we can do for prevention is strong social welfare programs, including single-payer healthcare and adequate support for housing and food. Right now, more than ever, those need to be our legislative priorities. My concern for the bills is rooted in pragmatism. This has the potential to politically cripple the DFL at a time when we have an unprecedented opportunity to build the varied coalition that we need in order to pass those legislative priorities. Again, which I believe should be focused on social welfare to assist the most vulnerable members of our communities. More and more people to whom the Second Amendment is a very real priority are currently politically disenfranchised. We may forever lose the opportunity to gain their support if they can remember not only when the government murdered their neighbors and they saw no justice, and then the DFL voted to take away their guns. If we show now that the voting public needs to choose between the most corrupt political party in history and a party that is vowing to strip them of their constitutionally protected ability to own firearms, and also turn hundreds of thousands of Minnesotans into felons by inaction, and spend their tax dollars to do it, we will continue to perpetuate the same environment that is rife with division and political apathy that has caused this dangerous federal administration to be elected in the first place. Your constituent and neighbor, Christopher.